I'm your host, Andrea Bazemore, and welcome to another episode of The Black Apple, where we talk about education and social justice in the classroom. If you teach all children, you teach gay children. They say about 10% of the world's population is gay. So the odds are that you will have a gay child in your classroom within your teaching lifetime. How will you nurture them? How will you give them space to explore their identities and explore the world in their viewpoint, just like you would give any other child? You may also have children in your classroom that have parents who are gay. So it's important that we build our cultural competency and understand how to best educate the child that identifies as LGBTQ in order to benefit them in the long run. We are constantly challenging what is quote-unquote normal, what is quote-unquote accepted in our society. Diversity is not just the color of people's skin. It's diversity of thought. If we are not teaching LGBTQ issues or exposing our kids to LGBTQ individuals, we are limiting their perspective, and we are not educating the whole child that will be ready and prepared for the world that we live in today. And the big question that teachers always face is, how do I do this? I may even be an ally of LGBTQ people, but I don't know how to bring up this topic. And there becomes a lot of fear. We're not sure how to bring up LGBTQ issues for the fear of possibility of being fired. And how do you overcome that fear and challenge the system? First thing that you need to do is understand your school's policy. Every school is going to be completely different, so it's in your best interest to know your school's policy. A good place to look is their non-discrimination policy in regards to hiring. One thing that you need to do is look for that clause in that non-discrimination policy. They should have categories that they include in their hiring practices that they do not discriminate against. Such policies could include gender, sexual orientation, or gender identity clauses. Now, the general rule is that if they can't discriminate against you as far as hiring, they can't discriminate you as far as teaching. So if I have an employer that is very accepting and will not discriminate based on the hiring practices of gender and sexual orientation, I know that I might be pretty keen on teaching those topics. However, what we see more nowadays is that gender identity clause may not exclusively be in there, and that's more speaking towards trans people. So that is something to note. Look for the big three: gender, sexual orientation, and gender identity clauses, because those are the three key things that will allow you to teach LGBTQ issues in your classroom. Now, if your employer does not include these big three, or only includes one, be very careful about teaching these topics. These topics are important as far as educating our children. However, you want to make sure that you're covering your bases first. The next step to promote an LGBTQ worldview is to challenge gender expression. I remember there was one time very clearly that I demonstrated that in my classroom without even trying. One day at the start of fall, I wore a Marvel sweatshirt, and a boy commented on my sweatshirt saying that he didn't understand why I was wearing it. I didn't understand where he was coming from. And he said, "Miss, Marvel sweatshirts are only for boys." And I said, that's interesting, because I'm not a boy, and I'm actually wearing this Marvel sweatshirt. So it began to challenge his idea of what a boy is supposed to wear and like, and what a girl is supposed to wear and like. And I would encourage every single teacher to challenge those identity perspectives in their classroom. We had a great classroom discussion because of my sweatshirt about what it means to be a girl and what it means to be a boy. And that was a great life lesson. That was a great teaching lesson, because it showed me that I have to show the whole me. I have to know what is stereotypically male and what is stereotypically female and challenge that identity perspective in my classroom constantly. So I would encourage you to challenge what identity perspectives do you still have in your classroom. On name tags, do you write in blue marker for boy and do you write in pink marker for girls? Are you lining up your classroom in boy-girl lines? And why do you do that? Why separate kids by gender for a simple procedure as lining up? I would constantly challenge yourself to navigate gender in your classroom. Really challenge your perspective. Challenge your gender worldview. And challenge yourself to get gender nonconforming items in your classroom. To deepen your exposure to the LGBTQ worldview, I would really suggest looking at books and looking at current events that affect the LGBTQ community. There are a lot of Reader Aloud books that I put in my classroom and had received from a Donors Choose project, and it allowed my students to really challenge their perspective of what gender was. We talked about a transgender boy. We talked about a boy who liked wearing dresses. We talked about a girl who was labeled as tomboy and what that really meant, and really dug down and explored that identity. And kids were really accepting. They understood that not everyone was the same and really accepted different viewpoints. And that was very beautiful to see at such a young age in 3rd grade, which was the grade that I taught, how open-minded they were. And those are the kind of character traits we really should be aiming for in our students today. And intersectionality is always happening within LGBTQ issues. For example, we just had the ban for transgendered persons in the military. I'm sure you've talked about the military in your classroom, and you could easily bridge that gap and talk about what that means for society today and what that would mean for an LGBTQ person who is actually serving in the military. I would also talk about notable gay figures in our world who have made a remarkable difference in our world today. Starting to talk about these notable figures and putting them in front of kids and exposing them to people who we would consider as heroes makes them challenge their perspective of what a hero may be. Again, we're always opening and broadening our students' worldview and our students' perspective of what it is to be LGBTQ and how they can relate to LGBTQ individuals, even if they don't identify with that perspective. And the last big point is stopping negative or derogatory language that is harmful to LGBTQ individuals. I know in my class I had a huge problem with kids, even now, saying that's so gay or gay in a negative adjective. And I was talking with a friend and she was having the same problem too. And she's a member of the LGBTQ community. And what she made me realize was that sometimes I was saying, stop, say that, as if gay was a bad word. But she challenged my perspective and she said, you know what? I want to challenge the usage of that word because gay is not a bad word. So by saying stop, say gay, we're equating gay as if it was a curse word. It's not the same. She said it's okay to say gay and it's okay to be gay, but gay is a noun. So that really challenged my thinking as far as just stopping that negative language and deeming a word as negative when that word is attributed to a person. I really had to dig deep with my classroom and really investigate, okay, why are they saying this? And can they learn to use gay as a way to describe someone or some person in an attribute that is not negative? So it's really digging deep, really investigating, okay, what kind of students do I want exiting my classroom? How do I want them to develop? What pathway leads to the greatest amount of acceptance in my classroom? What pathway leads to true diversity? Talking about LGBTQ issues is a part of our worldview today. So by not teaching the LGBTQ perspective, we are not teaching the whole child. Thanks. And remember, education is power, but knowledge is sweet.